Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Hills Football Referees Q&A series. For those that are joining us for the first time, my name is Chris Codling. I'm the Referee Administration Officer at Hills Football, and I'll be your host for this evening. Our guest this evening, as you can see, current New South Wales Community Referee Manager. He's also an assistant referee on the A-League Women's panel. So I'm sure you'll all join me in welcoming Emma Kocbek. Emma, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How did I go with the pronunciation?
It was perfect. You nailed it. I'm actually quite impressed with that.
There you go. There you go. I did my research well. Thanks for giving up your Monday night. It's really appreciated. Everyone, welcome to Freedom Day. Like Emma and I were just saying offline, it's nice to have a bit of normality, I suppose, if you like. But yeah, we're continuing through with our Q&A series. We've still got another few guests in the coming weeks as well. So look, Emma, we'll just get straight into it. Can you tell us a bit about how you first became involved in football?
Yeah, so I initially became involved in football as a player. So I think most referees start as a player, and I started in like under 8s or under 9s, just playing with my local club. And I did it because my little brother was playing at the time, and I kind of got a bit jealous that mum and dad, and he had this like really good group of friends that were going to his games on the weekend. So I thought I kind of want to get involved in that. It looked fun kicking the ball around, and kind of I was a bit competitive as well. So I liked the idea of being able to go in and kind of be a bit rough on the field and maybe kick a few ankles. So that's how I started my football journey, and then I ended up playing for about just under 10 years, I think. So it all started from being a little aggressive kid in under 9s.
Very good. And when did you decide that you wanted to be the boss on the field and just become a referee?
So I initially started, I think I was probably only about, I can't even remember, it was in about 2014. My one of my old coaches from my local soccer club, Penrith RSL, asked if I wanted to do just under 10s, and under 10s was small-sided games, and it was just because the parents were sick of doing it each week, and it was becoming harder and harder for them to like find someone to put their hand up. And because I was already at the field most of the time, either for my games or my brother's games, I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can run around with a bunch of 10-year-olds. So I did that for a little bit, and then one day when I was out on the field, one of the committee members from the Nepean referees group saw me and said, do you actually want to come and do the course? We're about to start a referees branch. And I went along and did the level 4 course. It was one of the first ones that Nepean referees group ran in the area because they were very fresh at the time. And that's kind of where it all started. And at the start, it was just good to have a bit of pocket money. It was nice to have a little bit of extra money. Even though I didn't have any bills, it's not like I was driving myself around. And whenever, like, you know, when you're a kid and you go to like the movies and stuff and your parents give you money anyway, but I felt really grown up that I was like earning my own money. And I was, yeah, like I said, I was usually at the field anyway for one game or another. So it was just really easy to be there and pick up games here and there. So that's when I first stepped out as a referee.
Well, you're fortunate tonight. You've dodged a bullet because unfortunately I didn't prepare a PowerPoint. I do have an embarrassing photo of you at your referee's course.
Oh no, it got posted the other day on Facebook, and I saw it and I was like, no, that needs to be taken down.
Yes, indeed it did.
Not good.
But as you said, the Nepean referees group were fairly new at that time. I suppose a question more around the female aspect. How did you find that course? Because I believe there was quite a few females in that course, if I remember correctly. As a younger female referee in particular, how did you find it starting out? You know, were there any challenges or barriers that you found when you started?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's similar to what any referee experiences when they first start out. Like the whole refereeing experience can be quite nerve-wracking. And I remember particularly as a young local ref, like I was very anxious before my games. Like sometimes I would be driving to games and I felt physically ill. And it was just because back then I was not as confident and kind of secure in myself as I am now as well. So I think particularly with Nepean Referees Group, it was a new branch. There was a lot of new members coming in. That particular course had quite a few girls as well. And everyone was just really supportive. And I think that's one of the key things that really helped me, is that there was constantly someone that I could have a chat to, or constantly someone that was checking in and being like, hey, it's okay. You know, if you make a mistake, we're still going to support you. At Nepean at the time, Nepean had a lot of support from Football New South Wales as a new branch. So Chris Griffith-Jones was coming into the branch quite a bit, and he was bringing in other people like Sarah Ho. So just being able to see those kind of key people, particularly like people like Sarah, who are incredible female referees, just made all the difference. And I think that's kind of what got me through that initial little anxious phase of being like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm running around with a whistle and people think I'm the boss, but I still felt very much like I was out of my depth. But that support network really helped me.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And with, you know, touching on the support network, Hills Football, you know, a bit of a shameless plug here. We're starting a female development program in 2022. So for all those female referees here with us this evening, watch this space. There's some exciting things, particularly in the female referee space, that's coming soon, with led by some of our homegrown talent. But let's move forward to kind of a bit about your pathway. So as I mentioned, you're currently an assistant referee on the A-League Women's panel. Mm-hmm. However, obviously we don't all start there. So you've said you started refereeing your younger games with Penrith RSL, then you've moved into full-sided level 4 with mm-hmm. the NRG. Obviously, next step naturally would have been the RDP at Football New South Wales. Now, I believe you've had a fairly rapid rise through the ranks compared to some other referees. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think my pathway is pretty much, all the stepping stones for my pathway are still very much the stepping stones that any referee kind of goes through if they want to progress onto things like the A-League Women's and the A-League Men's. I'm still getting used to saying that.
I'm still getting used to it as well.
But yeah, I think my pathway was quite condensed. I think I came in with a kind of drive and commitment and a really good time period in my life where I could commit the time to refereeing. So when I kind of progressed from local, as like my local branch nominated me to the RDP, and that also happened to be the first year that Football New South Wales put together the Referees Academy. So they pushed me to trial for that as well, and I got selected into that. And I think that was really the key turning point for me in realizing that I actually now had a shot at progressing further. Because when you're in academy, you get exposure to a lot of different coaches. So you get, you know, like A-League Men's and Women's and FIFA badged people. You get coaches like Rob and John, both Johns, Parker and Bowdler, you know, people that have a ton of experience. And then you also get the opportunity to go on tournaments. So in my first year of academy, I got the chance to go on state titles tournaments as well as a junior national tournament. And those tournaments were where basically I got identified by Football Australia as, you know, potential. Like that's all it was. It was just potential at that point. At that time, they had what was called the National Talent Pool, which is essentially the pool where they pulled people potentially for the A-League and the W League. And even though that doesn't exist per se anymore, it's still very much, if you're kind of in your NPL competitions, there's still very much that pool that you can strive to be a part of. So I kind of got selected into that pool, and part of that was you could start taking opportunities to basically train and be a part of the national panel. So you got the chance to go along to training with the people who were already on the A-League and the W League. You got the chance to interact with them more. It meant that you were getting more coaching on games and things like that. So once I got put into that national talent pool, I got to go to a couple more tournaments and kind of really proved myself as a match official. And then from there, I got a nomination onto the W League. And I went through the selection process for that. So I had to do a viewing game. So I had Ben, who was the referees manager of Football Australia at the time, come and watch my game. And from there, I got selected onto the W League. So it kind of was like every stepping stone that is still part of the pathway, I kind of had to hit. And I was quite lucky that things worked out that I could hit them kind of in the timeline with my age and kind of how things, like academy being incepted the year that I was eligible to be trialing for academy was quite lucky. But it also meant that each level, like as I progressed through, I had to work really hard to make sure that I could then get to the next one. So yeah, that's a bit about my timeline. And then obviously now I've been on the W League for I think 3 seasons, 2018,
Sounds
19.
right. Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, so about 3 seasons now. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, excellent. And I suppose another little shameless plug, because I'm doing my bit for Football New South Wales. The Referee Academy, I think, has been a really good program that Football New South Wales introduced, and props to Rob Newenhouse, who was our previous guest on the Q&A series. For kind of that was his brainchild. How instrumental do you think that process was, and is there any advice that you can give to our members here tonight, particularly around the Referee Academy, considering the trials coming up soon?
Yeah, it's huge. Well, yeah, trials are coming up. So if anyone is interested and hasn't nominated themselves yet, the link is on the Facebook page. So 100%, even if you aren't sure about where you want to take your refereeing, 100% recommend even just going along to the trials, because it's like that academy was game changing for me in terms of my refereeing career. I always think it's like, it was probably a bit of a sliding doors moment, because I didn't even want to go to the trial, because it was like, I was really nervous about not knowing anyone and like being out of my comfort zone and things like that. And like, what if I hadn't? I don't think I would have got to where I am on the W League. The amount of support and just the kind of professionalism that you get from being part of that team, and getting access to the people who are kind of in those positions where you want to be, like the W League and the A League people, just it changes your mindset and it improves your refereeing so much. And it really is like everything that you put into academy, if you get to be a part of it, you get back out. It's a incredibly beneficial program, I think. And if anyone's considering it, I definitely would recommend at least going along to trials, because you really have nothing to lose just by going along and seeing where you're at and having a go at it.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, straight from one of the inaugural members of the Referee Academy. So please keep an eye out for all that information. That information is available on the Football New South Wales website and Facebook page. So let's fast forward a little bit now. So we're currently going into about to be your 4th season of the A-League Women's Panel. And as I mentioned earlier, you're an assistant referee. So what point did you decide that you were going to follow that career path, and why?
Yeah, this is a good question, because I've been trying to like pinpoint the moment where I was like, yeah, assistant refereeing's for me. And I think it was around like 2017, so just before I kind of got nominated onto the W League as assistant referee. I'd gone to a nationals tournament, and I'd won referee of the tournament. And I came away from it being like, okay, that was great, but I definitely want to be an assistant referee. And I think it was just the fact that a lot of the things that I was naturally quite good at, so things like my speed and agility, like even just basic offside interpretation, were things that I felt a lot more comfortable in my abilities as. And they just align obviously really well with being an assistant referee. And so I think after that tournament, I kind of had a much clearer pathway of where I wanted to go. And I knew that the assistant referee pathway was for me. And then ever since then, that's just been like, even though there's been opportunities to kind of maybe try and jump tracks to go to the referee, like even within the Women's Premier League competition, I've just been very much narrowing my focus on being an assistant referee, because that's the pathway I want to take. And I do love being an assistant referee. I do prefer it to being a referee. I sometimes miss running around in the middle, but I think that an assistant refereeing is for me. I think that's the role that I was meant to do as a referee.
Excellent. And our first guest, Bradley Wright, on the Q&A series, he he very much said similar things to you. You've mentioned, state titles and, some national championships, and there's obviously a big moment that we'll talk about specifically in detail. But are there any other, generally memorable tournaments or stuff that that you'd like to highlight to us?
Yeah, I think I've been really lucky throughout my refereeing career because, I mean, aside from the past couple of seasons with COVID, my seasons have just had an abundance of opportunities for me. I got to go, like Brad would have spoken about a couple of weeks, I got to go to Dallas Cup, which was my first overseas trip as well. So that was sick, like being able to combine that with actually going with my friends and like refereeing, which I love, and going to a new place was incredible. I my W League debut, I was like, that day is always in my mind. Like whenever whenever I go to a W League game, I always remember walking out on that game. There was so many people that were there to like just support me, and like the rest don't have a support crew, and like there was so many people that I saw that day that they were like, yeah, we just came to support you, which I loved. So they're kind of two key moments. And then I always think about, which isn't memorable for a good reason, but it reminded me, speaking about academy, is that when I did my first academy trials, we did like a match as part of basically a viewing match. And I got out there and I was so nervous. And like within the first minute, my notebook like flew out of my pocket. And I remember just being so like, it's not even a big deal. Like you drop stuff as a referee, you just pick it back up and put it like back in your pocket. But I was so embarrassed, and like that memory is still burnt in my mind of like picking up my notebook and putting it back in, and like my uniform must have, like the Velcro must have just been worn away, so it like I could feel the notebook in my pocket like just like ready to just fall out again. And I was just like, no, that's it, I don't want to, like, this is crap, I'm not making it. Like they probably all saw me, like Rob's up the top laughing at me. And then I think we got back in the change rooms and they didn't even mention it, so no one probably even saw it. But in my head, like that's a key moment. But yeah, so there's a couple of cool memories there, and then a couple of not so cool ones.
But that just shows a bit of resilience as well. So, good on you. Now, like I mentioned, there was obviously a fairly big appointment in your career, and that came in 2019 when you were appointed to the NPL Australia Grand Final. So for those of our guests that don't know what that is, all the state-based competitions run by the member federations who hold an NPL, like obviously we have here, and then the teams that win those competitions, they then play off in a national final series. And you were fortunate to be appointed as an assistant referee to that match held down in Wollongong, between Wollongong and I can't remember who.
Yeah, it was some Queensland team. I can't remember either, but I do know it was Wolves.
It might have been Lions or Lions Olympic or Strikers anyway. How massive was that appointment for you?
Yeah, it was big. I remember getting the call from Football Australia saying, we're going to put you on this game. Here's the dates. And I like looked at the date, and I was meant to go to a festival that day. And I didn't even in my brain, I was just like, okay, I'll sell my ticket. Like, and I did, like, I got rid of my ticket straight away. But it was just like an incredible like testament to the hard work from that season. And we had such a good crew. We had actually Brad was on it as well. We had Tim Danaskos and Steve Laurie, who was an A-League referee from Newcastle, and Alex Glasgow was the assessor. So it was just an all-round stellar crew, and it was just a really good atmosphere. Like we went to extra time, I do remember that, because we were not enjoying it. But overall, the game was just, it was one of those games where you just feel like as a team that you walk off and you're like, yeah, we did good on that one. Like the teams played well. There was no controversy focused on us. It was just very much like a good match. And yeah, I was stoked to be a part of it. I'm still stoked to be a part of it. Like I look back on photos and I'm like, yeah, damn, that was a good crew. Like that was such a good day. So yeah. No, and Brad's on the call, so he'll be stoked to hear that too.
Yeah, no, that's it. We'll kind of segue into a question I was going to ask a bit later, but it seems appropriate now. So obviously you're at the top of women's football in Australia, but but that's not where it ends for you. Like we just said, you did the NPL Australia Grand Final, which is a men's competition, you know, and you're continuing to make a name in both the men's and women's game. You know, you consistently officiate at New South Wales NPL men's 1 level, and, you know, receiving FA appointments such as FFA Cup, round of 32 and onwards. Talk to us about any differences in the game between the men's and the women's game, and also any challenges that you found, particularly in the men's game, officiating at that level.
Yeah, I think, I have been doing NPL first grade for a couple of years now as an AR, and thinking about the differences between the men's and the women's competitions. It's like, it's hard to articulate because everyone thinks that there definitely is a difference between men and women's football. But when you kind of break it down a bit, I think that each individual team, like regardless of whether they're a male or female team, plays differently. And you kind of go into every game with a slightly different kind of mindset depending on who you're refereeing. I think the biggest difference for me between men and women's football is that when I walk out on a men's game, it's still a bit of a shock to people. It's not really the norm. So even though we have, I think this past season, we had the most number of female match officials that we've ever had on the men's NPL competition, when you see like myself walking out on the field, it's still like, it's not the norm. So I think on some level, everyone, like the players, even if it's not consciously, their first thought when they look at me is like, oh, she's a girl. Whereas when I walk out on the women's game, there's never even the thought, because the norm is that the girls are going to referee the girls. So there's just that slight difference. And I think, a lot of the time it doesn't even, like, people probably don't even realize that it happens, but it does. And sometimes it shows itself in a positive way, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think the fact that it can be quite confronting sometimes for people to see women on men's games, particularly someone like me, like I'm quite, like I'm small. I am not like a big bulky referee. Like I'm not a Craig Fisher. I'm not a, Steve Lucas. When I walk out on the field, it's not like I'm, what you would expect from a referee. I'm very much like a small assistant referee. So I think that can be quite confronting. And I think sometimes people can react positively and negatively to it. In terms of how you deal with that, I think that in some ways it's helpful, because it means that everyone, like every time someone sees you on the line, they go, oh, who's that? And if I'm doing a good job, then they'll say, oh, who's that, like that girl that's doing a good job. On the flip side, if I mess up, then everyone knows that it's me that messed up, because there's no hiding behind the fact that, oh, maybe it's my twin. Like I don't get that excuse to kind of have that leeway.
No, only Brad does. Only Brad gets to play the twin card.
Yeah, so I wish I could. But I think, that's probably the main difference. I think just that kind of standard of what's the norm. And one day, hopefully it'll be different. One day, hopefully I'll walk out on the field and then the first thought won't be, oh, she's a girl. It'll be, oh, how long has she been refereeing, or what's her experience, or we had her last week. But for the time being, I think it's still like a bit of some people are still a little bit shocked when you kind of walk out there and they're like, oh, she's going to be making decisions. And I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, no, and it's definitely a, the norm is changing. We're seeing, obviously, here in Australia, we had Kate Jackowitz last year make her debut on the A-League men's competition, which is excellent. I believe this year that Casey Rybelt has joined her on the panel as well. Sarah Ho's returning to the assistants panel. I think Joanna Karak.
Joanna and Misuk.
And Misuk as well. Yeah. So there's quite a number which will, just in Australia, we've seen Sarah there before for a long time as well, and Alison as well. But it's definitely the greatest number of female referees in the men's game, which is a testament to the efforts that these referees go to
100%.
To put it in, but also across the world. We see Stephanie Frappard from France, Katarina Monzol from Sweden or Ukraine rather just refereed the England game 2 days ago. So it's really excellent to see that, you know, mindset changing across the board. Staying with Football New South Wales, let's talk about Football New South Wales. So you've recently, within the last 6 months, taken up your position as the community football referees manager, replacing Carney Robinson. We all love Carney at Hills Football, but I'm certain everyone else does. So if anyone wants to share this with Carney, shout out to Carney. We miss you, mate. But Emma's doing a great job here too. Talk to us about, you know, what exactly your role is, and then further on from that, because you work in football now, how do you find a life balance away from football?
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, I've only been in the role not even 6 months, which has been interesting, particularly with COVID, because for most of that period, we should have had football going on, and I would have been able to work with a lot of branches on their competitions and things like that. But because of COVID, a lot of competitions weren't able to continue going. So it's been a really weird transition. Not even being able to get out and see someone. Like, I was lucky that I got to see a couple of the metro branches before we went into lockdown, but all our regional branches, I haven't even gotten the chance to go and meet them or see their members and things like that. So hopefully now, with things easing, I'll be able to get out and about a bit more and kind of get amongst it and see where everyone's at and be able to help out with their branches. But in terms of the balance, again, because I haven't had a full, like, even with the NPL season, that got canned pretty quickly with COVID. So I haven't really had to experience balancing like a normal season with the work kind of side of things. I got asked when I interviewed for the role, they asked me, like, what do you think the worst part of this job will be? And I was like, well, it's the same bit as the best part, which is the fact that my whole life is now football. Work is football, refereeing is football. All my friends, like the closest people around me, are all involved in football in some way or another, whether it's their referees or they're working admin or their players. So there's really no separation of like life and sport anymore. But I think in terms of the balance, it's something that I've learned over my refereeing career, is that even though a lot of my life is dedicated to refereeing and football and sport in general, if I was to take all that away, like, I would still be me. I would still be Emma. There would still be other things in my life that I would like. And being able to recognize that, like, as much as I love football and as much as I love refereeing, that's not everything that I am. And if you can kind of learn to do that and separate those kind of aspects internally, then you're pretty sweet with the work-life balance. Because then when you're talking to your friends, and like the people that are closest to me are really good at this, is that we can talk football for hours, but then if we're sick of it, we go, okay, like, it's time to switch off from that. It's time we focused on something else. And we know when to give each other breaks on, you know, talking about a decision or a game or panels and things like that. So I think that's just the key thing, kind of making sure that you don't put everything, every part of yourself into one aspect of your life, really, just knowing that there's other parts of you that exist outside of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's certainly something that I've found, you know, since I started in my role just over 6 months ago at Hills Football. It was I got asked exactly the same thing. What do you think the worst part is going to be? And that was definitely, you know, it's exactly the same as the best part, because, you know, I've done nothing but live and breathe football for 17 years and counting. But now that it's a full-time job, you know, it definitely highlights the importance to ensure that you keep that work-life balance. Otherwise, you will go crazy eventually.
Yeah.
Definitely, absolutely. So you kind of mentioned before about, you know, Stella Cruz, you know, on your NPL Australia Grand Final and stuff like that. You've mentioned some pretty big names across the course of this session. Do you have any refereeing idols that you'd like to kind of highlight?
Yes. I think the key one is it's always whenever someone asks me this, my mind always immediately goes to Sarah Ho. And I don't think she even knows how much she has impacted my career. I remember when like one of the first branch meetings I had at Nepean, and she was doing a presentation with Chris. And yeah, it was another sliding doors moment. Like it was just, she made me realize that there was a pathway for women and that it was something that I could do if I wanted to do it. So there's Sarah, definitely 100%. Like she's incredible person, incredible assistant referee. Alison Flynn always comes to mind as well. I was lucky enough that she mentored me for a season on the W League, and like her wisdom and insight is incredible. Is that me?
No. Yeah, it was you.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's why I took my headphone out to make sure
I didn't know if it was
burning down
me
the
on my
house.
computer.
No,
I think is it stopped now? Yeah.
Yeah, it stopped.
Sorry. But yeah, Alison Flynn as well. Incredible like person, incredible assistant referee, incredible career. Like you just look back on some of these women's careers and you think, how did you do it when like there was so much in football that was working against you? Like I'm incredibly lucky now to be coming through at a time where things have gotten so much better. There's still a lot more to improve, but football and refereeing has progressed so far for women. And it's thanks to women like them that I get these opportunities. And then there's obviously heaps, and I feel bad because there's so many people that I won't be able to name, but like there is so many other people as well that I look to. But I think Sarah, if I had to pick one person, she's my number one.
Yeah, no, Sarah's great. I've listened to many a story at many a seminar and technical session from Sarah, and she's incredible. She's really incredible. She's really incredible, and hopefully we'll have her as a guest for Hills Football next year as one of our technical sessions, because yeah, it's an incredible journey to talk about. And obviously now, with the Women's World Cup 2023, she's shortlisted as a candidate and onto that again for what will be a record 5th World Cup, I think.
It's just insane to think about everything she's done. Like how does one woman do it all? Like it's crazy.
No, that's it. Similar sort of question. Obviously we had Rob on 2 weeks ago and we were talking about, the impacts of effective coaching and, all that kind of jazz. Has there been any particular coaches that have kind of really helped mold your career? Again, it may be difficult, but is there anyone that you'd like to highlight there as well?
Yeah, it is very difficult, I think, because I'm so lucky that I've interacted with so many different people from branch level, like everyone there that was, like Graham Chapman, who's the president at the time, Kieran Fisher, who's my branch coach, even Nick Farmer, who's the current president, and was kind of coming through at the same time. Rob and Chris, Carney and John Bowdler, like that, particularly Carney as well, because he was one of the coaches in that first year of academy. Like incredible, saw something in me when I am still thinking about the day that I dropped my notebook in front of them. Like incredible people, incredible mentors. And then just from there, like everyone, like I've gotten the experience to, even on games, like on the W League, work with people and be able to take learnings from them as I'm on games with them. And I think that's one of the coolest parts now, like about being on the W League and kind of doing these NPL games and stuff like that, is all these people that I look up to and who, like, when I was a younger referee, really looked to be like, oh my God, like they're incredible. Now I get to work with them and I get to speak with them in person and like chat to them about games and stuff like that. So I think just everyone on the current panel, like even like literally everyone that I've worked with in the W League and the A League guys, or the New South Wales guys, just I wish I like, if I could list them more, if I could like just print out a sheet, it would be all of them, because there's so many. And I'm incredibly grateful, because I think what you don't realize coming through as a young referee as well is that everyone is kind of giving you bits of advice and you take parts of it. But so much of what you kind of just internalize, you don't even realize that you've taken it on until you look back and you go, oh yeah, actually that's what they were talking about. And now I finally get it. Like there's just so much growth that you do that it's impossible kind of to keep track of, it at the time. And then you look back and you go, oh shit, like I actually look at where I got to. So yeah, I think everyone at Football New South Wales, everyone that's been involved, everyone's great.
No, that's excellent. Where to now for you? What are your goals in the short and longer kind of term in your refereeing career? Because you've obviously, you're still quite young. You've got a long career ahead of you should you want it. What's kind of next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's going to be a long time from here. I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon, touch wood. For this season coming into this W League season, I really just want to focus on like consistently performing. I'm very big on being an assistant referee that referees can trust. So I always want to make sure that if someone sees that they have me as part of their team, they go, yeah, okay, Emma's got my back. Like, I want to make sure that I'm a really solid assistant referee for the referees on the pitch. And then in terms of like long-term goals, like I want to get on the A-League men's one day, and I want to get a FIFA badge one day. Like, I'm not aiming for the top.
Yeah, what referee doesn't? That's excellent. Do you think there'll be opportunities one day for female referees to go overseas? And what I mean by that is we've obviously seen this in the last couple of seasons, but particularly this season, Jared Gillette moved to England and is now on the Select Group 1 with the PGMOL refereeing. He just made his Premier League debut 2 weeks ago. Do you think with the way football is changing and female referees, getting more and more opportunities in the men's game, but just in general, do you think there'll be opportunities for female referees to go overseas and referee, maybe in the US, for example, or, in the Premier League women's competition?
I want to say yes, and I really hope that we do get to a point where that pathway is there. I think when we look at Jared, like, he worked very hard and he's an excellent referee, and his transition was not a simple transition by any means, even with the fact that he is such a quality referee. One day I hope that like refereeing as kind of a sport, or referees as athletes, are able to make those jumps. Do I think it's going to happen in my lifetime? Probably not. I wish it would. But in the future, definitely. And I hope we see more and more Australians kind of branch out the way that Jared did, because we are like, Kate Jack, I think, is probably one of the best referees that was at the Olympics. If she gets to this World Cup, she's going to be the best one of the best ones there. Like, I'm not even saying that as a biased Australian. Like, she is just a quality referee. So I don't see why we wouldn't stand a chance against other countries, because we produce like good match officials. I think, in my personal opinion.
Well, we did have Tammy Ogston referee a women's World Cup final. So there's no reason why that can't continue in 2023. And what a better place than here in Australia.
Exactly.
Look, we're starting to come towards the end of our questions that I've prepared. So guys, please, if you've got any questions, please put them through in the chat. Otherwise, I will invite you shortly to unmute yourselves. But can you pinpoint the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
There's been a lot of advice, and I think there's still a lot of advice that I get even to this day that I'm like, shit, that's the best piece of advice I've ever gotten. Something that comes to mind is, and I remember this when I was coming through, I was torn between being a player and being a referee, because it kind of got to a point where I couldn't really do both, because I was playing on Sundays, which meant that I was missing out on Sunday games. And someone had said to me, it must have been like someone like Rob or someone within Football New South Wales or the academy program, said to me, it's not enough to just do what everyone else is doing. If you want to progress this further, you got to do what the W League refs are doing. You got to do what the A-League guys are doing. You can't just be complacent, kind of doing the bare minimum and expect to progress. And I think that was like a turning point for me, because then I looked at the W League officials and I went like, well, what are they doing? They're training twice a week. They're doing the women's games. They're doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, well, if I want to be where they are, I'm going to have to do that too. So then I did it. And then I was like, well, now that I've started that, what's the next thing that I can do to improve myself? What's the next thing that I can incorporate into my routine or my training to make sure I'm that little 1% ahead? Because then when you add up all those tiny little 1%ers that you either add into your life or you remove from your life, it makes a big difference at the end of the day, and you end up setting yourself apart a huge amount. So yeah, I think that was the key thing. Like, you can't just do what everyone else is doing if you want to get ahead. You gotta do that extra little bit.
And along the same lines, any advice for our aspiring female, particularly female referees that are, still kind of in branch land at the moment? It doesn't necessarily have to be the same advice. Anything that you'd, particularly like to
There's a
say
lot of
to
pressure with it, because you gotta make sure you say something good. I think particularly for young females, and I think it's something that I had, I wish I had heard a lot more coming through, is that there's going to be a lot of things that will tell you that female referees don't belong. So you're going to have uniform suppliers that won't give you girls cut and will tell you to roll your shorts. You're going to rock up to fields and there's not going to be a change room for you to get changed in. You're going to sometimes have people telling you that you're ruining the game just because you're a girl. But you can't listen to any of them. You just have to trust that we deserve to be there. And when you look at the trailblazers, the people like Sarah and Alison and everything like that, they've proven that we deserve to be on that field. So don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't, and just keep going out there and just keep doing it, because we're here, and we deserve to be here. So that's probably my advice to young females.
Yeah, fantastic advice. And as I said earlier, keep an eye out, everyone, for female development program in 2022. Lots more good advice from, very experienced people such as Emma, and more to come. I'm going to finish off my questions by a little rapid fire questions that I ask everybody on my series. So we'll start with, what's your favourite pre-match meal?
Eggs on toast.
Oh, okay. Bit different to.
It's because it's so easy. Like, everyone says pasta, but you have to actually cook the pasta and sauce. Eggs on toast, you can do in the microwave. It's done in 2 minutes flat.
But I reckon half of those people that say pasta, they just bloody use the packet pasta in the microwave.
They're like easy Mac 2-minute ones.
No, that's it. Favorite football team?
I don't know. I don't support a team. I actually don't. I don't think I support anyone. Sorry for anything.
There you go. Okay, all right. Favorite holiday destination or dream holiday destination? Either or.
Japan. I wanted to go to Japan so badly.
Japan. Excellent. Favorite sport outside of football?
Outside of football would be CrossFit. I really like watching CrossFit games. I'm big into that.
Yeah, there you go. That's something from outside the box. And dream job?
For legal reasons, my dream job is my current job at Football New South Wales. I love it here. In case my boss is watching, this is my dream job. My actual dream job would probably be full-time, either a full-time referee or some kind of full-time athlete. I think that would be the ideal.
There you go. No, that's sensational. Some good, interesting answers there. Well, that does bring an end to my questions. So, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, I haven't had any questions come through in the chat, so please feel free to throw them through now, or take yourself off mute, turn your camera on, and feel free to ask Emma directly. Let's see what we get.
It's also okay if no one has questions, because I do recognise that it is a Monday night on Freedom Night.
Yeah, indeed. So that's okay. We'll just give them a short amount of time, and if not, then we'll call the session to a close. Oh, Adrian, that was directly to me. Adrian says, hello, Emma. Okay. Oh, okay. Adrian Tamplin would like to know, have you ever refereed futsal, or have you ever considered refereeing futsal?
I have never refereed futsal, and it's something I actually pre-lockdown, Jordan, who works in our futsal department at Football New South Wales, was also trying to convert me into a futsal person. So I'm open to doing a course and seeing how it is, and that's all I can say I'll commit to.
Excellent. We need more futsal people in the refereeing department. Very good.
I know John Bowdler will not be happy with that, because if it means it takes away from his appointments, he will.
That's
not be
okay.
happy.
That's okay. John has me to answer to, because he rings me 75,000 times a week, and that's just during the football season.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness me. There you go, Adrian. You can get onto your next recruitment drive, mate. Excellent stuff. Is there any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Emma, it's Tristan. I have a question.
Yeah.
I just want to know what color whistle you use when you're refereeing on the W League.
So I'm an assistant referee in the W League, so I usually carry a flag and use that one. But when I'm out on an NPL match, I would carry a classic black. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I like the good black whistle.
You're not a Christmas Jones fan with the bright pink?
I do have a pink, and I bring it out for special occasions. That and my orange whistle, which was my first ever color, but they're reserved for special occasions. Normal matches, just plain black.
There you go. All right. Brad Wright has sent through a question and has said, if you could travel back in time and visit young Emma, what would your advice to her be?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Are you insinuating that she's old, Brad? I think that's a bit rude.
That is rude.
You should take it up with him offline, I think.
Yeah, I will. I will immediately message him after that. What would I say to younger Emma? I'd just say, just keep going. You're going to get there. I think there was, like, as I was talking about before, there was a lot of times where I was quite anxious as a referee. And I think if I could have told her where I would get to, I would have kind of been able to breathe easier. So I would just say, keep at it and put your head down and do the work, and it'll all work out for you.
Excellent. And Brad says he would never call you old. Nice save,
yeah,
Brad.
we'll see about that.
One of our junior referees in Hills Football, Niall Bumler, has asked, what level qualification do you currently hold, and at what point in your career did you start doing the level 3 and then so on?
Yeah, so I'm currently a level 2 theory, and I have my full level. I have my full level 2, and I have my level 1 theory, which is what you need to be able to potentially be on the top league panels, so the A League and the W League limits. When did I start progressing? I think you can do your level 3 basically as soon as you turn 16. And as long as you've been refereeing, you can do your level 3. So I think I probably jumped on that as soon as possible, and then from there progressed with the ages. So level 2, you have to be 18 and you've got to be doing your local prems, and then level 1, obviously you need to make sure you've got your level 2 and things like that. So if you're kind of trying to work out when you should start upgrading, I'd say if you were eligible for your level 3, then that's something you should do straight away, and then you can kind of work out when you should step up to level 2, based on what kind of games you're getting in your local branch.
Yeah, no, definitely. And keep an eye out. We've run some upgrade courses this year, and there'll be certainly more next year. And that's just within Hills Football. Obviously, Football New South Wales are always providing those courses on a regular basis.
And if there is a course that people want, and there's not course dates set for it, people can always email me, because if we get enough people wanting to do, say, a level 3, we can set one up. You just have to make sure that you either touch base with you, Chris at Hills, or us at Football New South Wales, and we'll work to get you upgraded. Yeah,
no, definitely. Another question from Brad Wright, and he says, can you please talk about your experience on the Dallas Cup Grand Final that you were appointed to?
Oh, I didn't know that's where that question was going. I thought he was gonna plug himself
Oh.
at Dallas Cup because he also did quite well.
Oh no,
Dallas Cup-
he plugged himself in his own session.
Dallas Cup Grand Final was that was a fun experience. We got to go into the main stadium. I got to work with I think, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, a Jamaican FIFA badge referee. I don't know if he'll put it in the chat. I'm pretty sure he was from Jamaica, so had his FIFA badge. And yeah, that was a really cool experience. It was, oh God, I can't even remember the age now as well. It was like under 16s. Brad, also correct me if I'm wrong because I feel like he remembers it slightly better than me as well. But that was sick. I remember we were late that day because Brad and Cam slept in. So thanks for that, boys.
That's excellent. And, what I'll ask a follow-up question. What was it like refereeing teams from across the world at arguably the world's biggest youth tournament?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I cannot speak a word of anything other than English. So some teams would have one person that could kind of vaguely understand what you were talking about. And if they subbed him off, I was screwed. So I quickly learnt one word, which was tranquilo, which meant calm down. And
that wouldn't be Spanish, would it?
I used it for 90 minutes of every match. Basically, it's all I could say. That and espada, which apparently meant sword. So I probably shouldn't have been using that one.
That explains why Brad's asking how's your Spanish.
Yeah, it's not good. But it's an interesting because there's a lot of non-verbal communication and you very quickly have to learn how to interact with players in using your whistle and using your body language and not just relying on being able to speak with them.
I was going to say that having those experiences, it really emphasizes the stuff that we teach here in Australia about body language. Leading into player management, about how effective that really is and how much that really aids it. Tristan has asked, he would like to know what the worst decision you think you've ever made and how you dealt with it and then learned from it.
Worst decision I've ever made. There's been a few. Worst decision I've ever made. So this is the thing, because you kind of just block them out in your memory as decisions so that you don't get traumatized by them. One of my worst decisions was actually on my W League debut match. It was a deflection versus play decision on an offside, and we got it wrong. We disallowed a goal, and we disallowed a goal for offside, thinking that it was correct, but it wasn't. We should have allowed a goal. So it was a KMD. I failed a KMD on my first game. How did I move on from that? Basically, when you're on the W League or the A League, you look at your match and you come away from the game and you spend your 90 minutes or whatever once you get home watching the match. Then you get your assessor's coaching form, which will have clips in it. So you have to watch the clips all over again. And then at that point on the W League as well, we were also doing weekly teleconferences. And my clip was in the teleconference. So I got to chat to the entire panel about it. And I think when you look at those clips, again, they just become coaching clips. You're just another referee. And if you look at it and you go, okay, I'm going to learn from that decision as if it was anyone else, then you can take the learnings from it and you don't get so personally attacked. I think the first time I saw that clip, I was upset and it made me anxious. And I was I felt uncomfortable seeing it because I knew it was my mistake. But then you kind of just learn to look at it as a training clip, and it's not you running out there on the field, messing up. It's just a referee, and you just learn from whatever their mistake is, and you make sure that you don't do it the next game.
Yeah, no, definitely some good advice.
Thanks for triggering me, Tristan.
Is there any other questions from anyone else? Last final call. Tristan said you're welcome.
Good, Tristan. Cool.
No further questions. All right. Well, we'll call the session to a close. Emma, thank you so much for giving up your Monday evening
Thank you for having me. And thank you to everyone coming along on Freedom Night.
Yeah, Freedom Night. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm pleased to announce now that we are hosting our next session next week. Same time, 7 p.m. Same place, Zoom. This one is not one to be missed. We heard from Brad in our very first Q&A session that one of his idols, if we ever got to speak to him, was one that should not be missed, and that man is Mr. Kurt Ames. Kurt will be joining us next Monday, and for those that don't know who Kurt is the current A-League men's and FIFA badge referee. He's got a very unique story in his refereeing career, so I won't give too much away, but definitely make sure you tune in for that one. And we hope to see you all next week. Emma, it's been great. Thank you so much. We look forward to, now that lockdown's ending, we can look forward to catching up once again. And yeah, thank you everyone, and good evening.